Aloha, I'm Deslynn Jaquias. I'm the host of Healing with Aloha Podcast, located on the island of Kauai. On this podcast, we talk about grief, we talk about mental health, we talk about healing, and the importance of having passion for life. We hope that this episode brings you hope and healing with Aloha. And for today's guest, I have Darnica Gordon. She's 37 years old. She's a mother of 3 amazing children, wonderful children, and she was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But she's motivated to see the world. She's enjoying her growth in areas of encouragement of women to learn their worth, as well as how to process grief and loss caused by death and or divorce. She loves learning, reading, and dancing, especially if it's with other friends and loved ones. Me too. You should see her. She loves karaoke. Yeah. And so with further ado, guys, this is Darnica. Hi, Darnica.
Hello. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy to have you on here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, and there's 3 tips that we're gonna touch on during this interview. And so before we go, like with the interview, I just wanted you to share a little bit about yourself, so our guests, our listeners can get to know you.
Well, like you said, I'm actually 38 now. My birthday was in April, and so yes, I am a year older. It's crazy how time flies. I am a mother of 3. My kids are much older. My youngest is 11. My oldest will be 21, if you can believe it.
Can't tell.
And so I did experience being a teen parent, and growing through that. Basically, my goal is to venture on this speaking journey and just sharing and trying to encourage women, mainly young women, in regards to worth. But with recently being divorced, I have seen this as another lane for me to try to provide just some light, and hopefully that it provides help and hope for other ladies.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you doing that, because I think a lot of times we don't realize that our self-worth is not something that we were taught.
Right, absolutely.
And depending on your culture and how you're raised, a lot of times we were taught to take care of everybody else.
Yeah.
And so you don't take the time to understand how you feel about where you're at, where you're going, and what decisions you have to make. What have you learned, because you've experienced, from being a young mom, yeah, and then to being divorced? Was that something you realized that is not addressed?
Yes. I've spoken, in several settings to teen parents. I used to mentor teen moms. And one thing I realized, like you said, a lot of us aren't taught about our worth, or it's not talked about, because I proposed a question to the young ladies of, do you feel worthy? And a lot of them said like, no, or I haven't thought about it, or, like that's not discussed. And I was asking like, well, do you feel like you're worthy? And a lot of them said no. And well, why not? What disqualifies you from having worth? So it's important that I feel like that is a topic that is to be discussed. It wasn't discussed with me. You're not nothing, but at the same time, you don't know, the type of worth that you have or that you are. So I think it's important for that to be brought up with young ladies.
Yeah, and I think we need to start talking about it, because sometimes we think, okay, because this event happened in our life, it lessens our self-worth.
Yes. And that happened to me as a teen parent, because I was the straight A student. I was the one involved in all the extracurricular activities, and I was very well behaved. And when I became pregnant, everyone kind of looked at me, sideways, like, oh, it's the good ones, it's the goody two shoes. So I had to deal with that from family, from schoolmates. And it does, lower your self-esteem or make you feel ways about yourself.
Yeah, because in their eyes, they felt that your decisions defined you and that now you're giving it all up.
Right. Yeah.
But what in reality, it's like, well, you definitely are modifying what your goals are.
Yeah,
but it
absolutely
doesn't change who you are.
Right.
Just so you know, my mom was a teen mom when she had it. And so by the time my mom was 19, she had 3 of us.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think we turned out decent.
Right.
And so
Right.
I think, definitely having this conversation, it's good because people need to know that just because other people have dreams and plans for you,
right,
it doesn't change that you still have great things coming your way.
Absolutely. I agree. Because, my plan was to be a lawyer, to go to law school. Duquesne University here in Pittsburgh was my school of choice. I was going to go there for college and for law school, and I was going to be this amazing lawyer. And it didn't pan out that way. But the funny thing is, my plan B was journalism, because I was feeling defeated, and I was like, I don't have a purpose, and I don't have a dream, and I don't have, I'm just a mom now. And I was able to do my plan B, which was journalism, and I had been given a vision of a magazine. And so for a few years, probably up until 2016, I was putting out a magazine here in Pittsburgh. And so I was able to use my love for writing to do that. And that kind of boosted my self-esteem again and gave me that sense of purpose. And that's kind of what navigated me to share with young ladies that, I've dealt with low self-esteem. I've been the teen mom. I've, been in the difficult relationships and different things like that. And none of that strips away from who you are, and so it's important for them to understand that.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing how you've been able to turn like your situation and to find ways to take something you enjoy.
Right.
And to be able to allow you to connect to people.
Yeah.
Do you think that people need to realize that sometimes the things you love and enjoy doesn't have to be attached to monetization, like making?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I've had to learn that along the way as well, because there's so much, especially when you're a teen parent, because having money, because you have to take care of these babies, you're now on your own, everything's kind of been rushed. So it took me away from being able to enjoy something without money being attached to it, but moving through and having the magazine, and just loving to do it, even though the money wasn't coming in the way I needed it to produce, more magazines. I absolutely loved writing. I loved getting articles from people that were submitting, and it would bless me, it would minister to me. And I really enjoyed doing the magazine. So yes, it is important that things that you love don't always have to be connected to money or making money from it.
I mean, it probably lit you up that because of your situation that you were able to have compassion on other people, and you held space for them, like in a unique way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So what we were talking about earlier about the 3 tips that we were going to talk about. And I thought we could go over the tips and then share along the different things about grief and then divorce and whatnot. The tips. Yeah. So the first tip that you wanted to share with us is don't be too hard on yourself.
Absolutely. I think growing up, my mom was more of the one who was more hard on me and wanted me to always work hard and make sure I maintained this certain level of just stature, I guess, like good grades, different things like that, being involved in different things. And my dad was kind of just very supportive of whatever I wanted to do, very would give his input, but It's like, well, do you want to try this? Maybe you could try this. And my mom was more like, this is what we do, and this we get this done. And so I think taken from that, I was very hard on myself, especially as a teen parent. And so it was like, I didn't want any help from anybody. I didn't want to be on government assistance. I wanted to have a job, and I wanted to work, and I wanted to even though I was a teen parent, I wanted to maintain a certain, I guess, persona, that I had it together and I was okay. And I was very hard on myself, and we can't be. We have to, the same grace you would extend someone else who you may see struggling, we also have to extend, give that grace to ourselves and be kind to ourselves, and allow ourselves, we are going to make mistakes, and to understand that, and, and just be a little bit more gentle with ourselves when we're going through things.
No, and I think that's important, like being human.
Yes.
And having self-compassion. That is something we don't all know about. What is self-compassion?
Right.
Like, why should we have self-compassion? Because if you don't have that love for yourself when you're at your worst or when you're having difficulty, then you're not going to be able to pull yourself back up.
Yes.
And so I think that's something you got to build a muscle for.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is the thing that you felt you learned the most, because you had your second child, from your first to your second, did you see transformation in how you went about parenting?
Absolutely. It's so funny. The most change I saw was with my third child, but we'll just talk about the second.
Okay.
So when I had my first child, I was 17. And then I gave birth to my second child 10 days before my 21st birthday. And so I kind of had some experience at this point, because by now I have a 3-year-old. So I got, so everything wasn't as, I don't know the word. I don't want to say like nitpicking everything. Like, no. It was kind of more relaxed, I wasn't so worried about everything, and I kind of knew the ropes, what to do at what point in time. So I was kind of
lenient.
I was older. I was able to enjoy it a little bit more. It was received well, because I was older. I had my own place, so it wasn't. So, people were able to actually celebrate this new life. And it wasn't like any whispers behind it, maybe like it was with, my first child.
You're grown up already, and
so right, absolutely. So I was able to enjoy it, a little bit more than the first.
No, and I think because you're able to enjoy it and feel more confident in your abilities as a parent, as a mom, then it's like, okay,
right,
it's easier. Whereas the first one, you're like worried, and then you realize it wasn't that as big of a deal.
Right. Yes. And then with my third child, my older kids are like, well, you didn't do that. We weren't allowed to do anything. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Curfews, you're not allowed to watch TV. You're not allowed to watch
nothing. So
no, but I mean, I think it's important for you to understand that you have to mature and grow.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what you thought was okay back then, what like you had to adapt.
Yes, absolutely.
The second tip you had was take time to learn yourself. What is the biggest takeaway that you've learned, with just changes you've gone through, whether being a parent or like, in your recent divorce? What do you feel like has, have you learned the most about yourself?
That I like myself. There's a difference between loving and liking. To like something, is like, oh, I really like, so you can love something and not like it, but being able to say that I like myself, like I mentioned, I had low self-esteem. And so my children's father we were together. He's my ex-husband. So we were together since I was 15. And so I was with him for more than half of my life. So I've always been attached to somebody. So even during that period of being a teen parent, I was also in a relationship. And so I was always conforming to those two roles. So as I'm growing up, I'm never learning who Darnica is outside of that. And so unfortunately, it took for me getting a divorce to be able to take that time to learn myself. So I encourage women that even if you are married, even if you are a mom, to really take time out to learn who you are outside of those things. What do you like to do? What makes you smile? What makes you happy? What lights you up? Just no matter what, it's important to know those things about ourselves. Outside of those different roles, whether even if you're not a mom or a wife, outside of work, outside of being a sister or, a good friend, who are you and what do you like? What makes you happy? So learning yourself, I think is very important.
Yeah. And it definitely is scary. If that's, you've always put others like above yourself. I know when I got divorced, it was like a while ago, like 12 years ago, it was scary because everything about the husband, the child, and then it's like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. You know what I mean? What do you want? I don't know. What do you want to do? But it's scary, but yet it's healing.
Yes, absolutely.
I think society teaches like Mother's Day just happened.
Right.
And so, people are giving shout out to wives, moms and stuff, and they're like, oh, they always put others above themselves. I'm like, yeah, but I think there needs to be harmony in allowing a woman to be able to love herself and everybody else, helping out. It's like instead of it just being, I don't know, does it make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I agree completely. Absolutely.
But then
because so much is put on a woman. Yeah, it's just like, oh my goodness, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I was like, before maybe I would say that's great, but now I'm like, no, I think it's stress. It's too much stress put on a woman to be able to meet everybody's needs.
Absolutely.
And like you said, so it's important for us to learn ourselves. You know what I mean? Read, go like volunteer, listen to podcasts, join a fun class or something like that.
Yeah. People were, and there's a lot of stigma, I feel like, behind divorce, because it's like, when she gets divorced, now she is dressing this kind of way, and now she's going to these places, and she's wearing makeup, and she's getting her hair, and for me, what people don't realize is I was battling low self-esteem, whether if it was projected onto me or some insecurities I picked up myself. And now I'm living in a place where I am accepting myself, and I love her, and I love getting to know her and trying different things with her. Maybe I want my hair long, maybe I want it short, and you can do all these things unhinged because now you're not connected to anyone. So you don't have to worry about what they're going to say or how they're going to feel. You can just try it out. So I think people miss that it's not that because it is both because I'm divorced, but not like, oh, she's divorced, so she's trying to do, I'm rediscovering myself through this divorce. And I think a lot of people might miss that.
Yeah, because they don't understand the relationships, the communication that was going on that would hinder you from making personal decisions about your appearance or just the things you pursue in life. So people just like assume. And I think like one of the things about learning yourself is being able to block out the people's judgment of you in the process.
Absolutely. That's very important, because if you allow their judgments, you will have a hard time learning yourself because you're still basing things off of other people. And so you have to be able to block that out to really get to the root of who you are and what you love, and be able to stand on that and not let people shake that about you. If you stand on something, stand on it firmly, and I did these steps and this is what I've come to and this is what I stand on. And regardless, like, oh, you just did that because you're divorced, or you're just acting like that because you're single. And a part of it is that because I've had to go through these things because I'm in this new territory now. And so now I have to discover and rediscover certain things that I wasn't faced with before.
Yeah. And maybe you didn't have the opportunity.
Right. Exactly.
To have it as an option for you to consider.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And I think, people often forget that, they just think, oh, it's like, no, there is so much things that happen on the back end.
Yeah.
People's relationships.
Yeah.
And it hinders our mental health, our spirituality.
Yes.
And so much more. And so now you have this freedom to choose, and it's okay if other people aren't on board with the direction you're heading.
Absolutely.
The third tip you had was take time to heal, no matter what it's from.
Yes.
You want to share about that?
Yes. So the divorce, for example, because it's kind of like, so like when you finally decide to separate, it's like a death, for me. And so then I break it into like, that part was like death for me. And then, going to actually go file for divorce is like going to the funeral home and giving the information, because it's hard to talk about, it's hard to get this information, it's hard to keep thinking about this, knowing that it's no longer, and then actually getting that piece of paper saying that your divorce is like the funeral. Like, so it's a process of losing something and being torn apart from something. And so it was important for me to constantly question myself and constantly process where I was at each stage. And it's like, even though I know it was the right decision, it didn't make it any less painful. It didn't make it hurt any less. It didn't make it any, it wasn't comfortable. Of course, I questioned, like, is this the right thing to do? Because I seen the effects around me, with my children. And so it was very hard thing to do, but being able to take a step back, like I said, and process what I'm feeling. Why am I feeling sad? Why am I angry? Why am I having these feelings? And constantly having open communication with my children, and trying to not be bitter, because it was a very upsetting thing. And healing is just very important but it's hard at the same time, because you have to immediately go from being married to somebody to being divorced to co-parenting.
Yes.
And that is a whole world. Like, that's mind-boggling. Like,
it's not easy. It depends who's your partner. It's not easy.
And it's like, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. And I'm just like, how do people I've never heard anybody talk about navigating divorce immediately into co-parenting. Like, how that's a very hard thing to navigate, because you still have your own feelings going on about the situation, but you constantly have to be in communication with this person that you don't want to talk to, that you don't want to be bothered with, you don't want to see. And so it's like, you have to build boundaries to be able to have that time to heal like you're supposed to. And so regardless of how many boundaries you have to have, however they don't understand them, do whatever it works for you on your journey to healing, because that's a hard thing. It is. It's difficult.
It is. And, healing, it's an ongoing process. It's not like it's been a year, we've been divorced, we're good now. We're
good, right? Because everyone looks at me and they're expecting me, like, you still feel some type of way about, or random things will come up in my emotions. And I'll even say to myself, like, well, it's been 2 years. What's going on here? But that's not how it works. You're going to still have those emotions. You're going to come, you know, because I think of,
you're comfortable.
yeah. So, you know, I constantly think about like, this is our time. We should be together getting ready for our two older kids to, you know, be moving out, going to college. And now I'm here doing this by myself, you know? And so I don't know. It's rough.
Yeah, because it's like you find yourself going between two worlds, right? Like,
yes.
like, you know, okay, we're here.
Right.
Then on the backside, your subconscious, like, technically it would have been here.
Right. Right.
Like if we were still together.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think like people have to understand that it's normal to feel that way.
Yeah,
to,
absolutely.
To sway between the two.
Yes.
And sometimes trying to talk to certain people, they don't help. You know, but just finding people who are safe and who are compassionate and not judgmental of feeling that way. Like you're gonna grieve.
Right. Yes.
We could have been here. Like if we had worked out, we could have been this much further.
Yes. Yes.
But it's like I think it's important like to talk about this because it's real and nobody should ever feel like they're gonna get it, like understand the process because it's unique, and sometimes the people you're involved with doesn't make it easier to navigate this process.
Yes.
That you ended this relationship but you still have a relationship with them.
Right. And that was the hardest thing for me to navigate. And I'm glad I'm starting to get to a point where because I've always been cordial. We've always been, you know, we're cordial with each other. But I'm getting to a point where I can tell that a lot of healing has taken place because things that triggered me are no longer triggering me. I'm able to talk about different topics that were sensitive before and are not so sensitive now. And so I can definitely see the growth and I'm thankful for it. But it is, I'm grateful that it wasn't hard. It wasn't, I guess, worse than it could have been as far as my ex-husband. You know, like we didn't make anything extra harder for the other person, even though the situation was hard in itself. And so, so because we have 3 beautiful kids and we have to take care of them together. And I don't want them to endure any further pain than the divorce has already caused, you know, so.
No, and I understand. Like my mom's divorced and she remarried. She said, if you guys can just be friends, you know, for the sake of our son, then you're better off.
Right.
You know, not like best friends, but
right,
like,
exactly.
You can, if possible, be cordial.
Yes.
Then the transition. And so I think it's commendable for you guys to do that because you're trying to make the kids feel like it's not because of you that we got divorced.
Right.
There's things that were going on between us and we tried. And it's better this way. But do you feel that the kids, your children, can see a difference though, you know, since the divorce and how much, like, because you've been working a lot on healing yourself, right? Do you feel like the kids can see a difference in you being present?
Yes. Yes. Like I said, I have very open communication with them, and I try to gauge where everybody is, question how everybody's feeling, how everyone's doing. I know because I'm their mom, they're not going to open to me, 100%, but I try to make sure they know that they can talk to me, and we're very frank with each other, and they can see, that I am in a better place, that I look different, that I glow a little bit different, so yes, for sure.
And ultimately kids just want us to be happy.
Yes.
They, as parents, they truly want us to be happy. They're probably more adaptable than we realize.
Yeah. And that's true. And I think that's true for my older two. For my youngest, she's having a little bit more of a harder time. But I think she's getting to the place where she's owning it kind of. She's understanding what happened. She knows it's something that doesn't seem fair. But it was for the best, that it's not her fault, that we both still love her very, very, and I think that's important. And it's like a cliche thing to say, but it's very important that the kids understand that it has nothing to do with them, and that they are still loved on both ends, and that we're able to continue to exhibit that to them, so that's very important.
But I think it's great, like you're being able to have that open lines of communication with her and allowing her to express like I don't like going back and forth. I don't like, right. He's probably going to feel it more than your 21-year-old.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's like, now I got to shuffle back and forth every week, or, like whatever and stuff, but like you just allowing her to express herself.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what they really need. They need to be able to be heard.
Yes. I agree. And that was a very big thing for me, for them to be able to do. Like, no matter if they thought it might offend me or hurt my feelings, but just being able to share their feelings and how they felt about the situation, that was a big thing for me.
Yeah. And communication, that really helps them to feel loved. Is you wanted to hear how they felt.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about you and the dad, like,
right,
everybody, and I think that makes it, I have, so my son's 15, and I was like, what is it like being a child of divorced parents? He's like, I don't know. He's just so used to going back and forth. And I just kind of like leaned into just saying your dad loves you. You know what I mean? And the dad and I, we hardly talk. We mostly text, like, okay, what's going on? And then I think that minimizes the extra triggers that could pop up, when you're talking to them.
Right.
And so you just like keep it simple and just like, okay, we're gonna, what day, what time?
Right.
Anything? Right. Oh, everybody's okay. Okay, great. Right. Yeah. I just wanted to ask you another question. So, overall, like, what would your advice be to someone who's like in the process of like a divorce? What is like one advice that you would like for them to know? I know it's been 2 years, but like, if you could give any advice to yourself and to someone that is currently divorced or in the process, what would you say?
To let yourself feel those emotions. Don't try to like suppress anything, or because there will be a range of them. You can be like, I'm glad I did this, and boy, bye, or whatever. And then the next day you might be sad, like, what did I do? What am I doing? Then you might be angry, like, I can't believe I'm here because of X, Y, and Z. All those feelings are valid. And it's important to allow yourself to feel them and try to process why you are feeling those feelings, like what triggered it and why is it bothering you, to kind of to deal with them and get past them. Also to, I know sometimes a support system is hard to come back, because people deal with a lot of trust issues and they don't want to share, but I think it's important to have at least one person that you can vent to, like just be completely transparent with. I have a really good friend, and she has been definitely that, like, when I'm tired of talking it, I know she's tired of hearing about it, but she will listen. She will listen. And, there's times when she'll let me vent, and then there's times when she'll give me her input. But I think that's important to have as well. And of course, prayer for me was a definitely a big thing. And so I think that would be my advice for myself, because I kept wondering why I was having all these emotions if I did something that I knew was the right thing to do. But I feel like it's just a part of the process. So just to allow yourself to go through those things and have that support system.
No, and that's great advice. that people need to understand it's normal to waver back and forth,
Yeah.
you know, and that if you can find at least one person
Yes.
that you can trust, or, you know, if depending on what you've been through, to seek therapy, a counselor, you
Yes.
know, or
Those
like,
are very important as well. Yes.
yeah,
I've
or
yet to get a therapist, but that is definitely on my list. I think that is very important as well.
because sometimes you don't need feedback, you just need to vent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what is the best way for people to follow you, like on Instagram, if they wanted to connect with you, if women wanted to connect with you?
Absolutely. Instagram, I'm just at Darnica, Darnica, Gordon, Gordon. So it's just at Darnica Gordon on Instagram. And I'm pretty much Darnica Gordon everywhere. So if you type me in, I'll probably pop up.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm so glad like we connected, because you have, you know, so much insight to help women to understand that there's hope, even if you feel like this wasn't the plan, that
Right.
there's a plan B, C, and D that
Right.
you can incorporate.
Yes.
And there are people who are gonna like love and support you along your journey. You know,
Yes, absolutely.
and so hold on, guys, thank you so much for joining Darnica and I. It's a pleasure to have you. And you know, if you haven't subscribed, you can subscribe now to Healing with Aloha. Have a great day, guys. Aloha.